to the Bigger Room podcast. I'm your host, Mel Cobian.
And I'm Jill Bender. And today we are so excited. We have with us a mom who not only birthed a child, but she birthed a six-figure business all in the same year. So welcome, Ruth Steel.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. So Mel, you had a question right out of the gate for Ruth.
Yeah, Jill and I were talking about Ruth. So we all met through the same mentorship, and we just admire how upfront Ruth is. Like, if she has a thought and we're just kind of discussing it, she's already like confronting the situation with the question. And I admire that because, like, growing up for me, I was always told to like be quiet, like, no, don't ask questions. So when I see people just ask the question or just have like be brave, what taught you to be that? Like, was it how you grew up, or were there situations in your life that gave you that awesome skill?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting because I have heard that before a lot. Like, people must notice that about me. If there's something on my mind, and do you know what? It doesn't matter the scenario that I'm in, whether it's like learning a new skill and in a classroom environment or in my relationship with my husband. If there's something on my mind that I want to talk about, I have to just get it out. I can't ruminate on it for too long, if that makes sense. And I don't know where it comes from. I think I've just always been really curious, and I can't stand not knowing something that I want to know. So any environment I've been in where I'm learning something new, if I have questions about something, it honestly doesn't even cross my mind to not ask them or to feel embarrassed about what I'm going to ask. I think I just ask it, and I've heard so many times along the way other people being like, oh, I was wondering that as well, but I didn't ask the question. I kind of think, why? Like, it would drive me mad not knowing, so I'd rather ask and even get a no, or I don't know the answer, than not ask. Do you know what I mean?
So when I was growing, I took classes all throughout I was like a forever student. I've never been afraid to ask a question in a classroom setting. Like, there was no question that's stupid to me. And I would always have the same thing where people are like, oh, I'm always too scared to ask that. I'm like, I didn't even ask anything that miraculous. I just had a question. But I think what Mel is saying is that you ask questions even when it's something that we kind of on a tiptoe around, and we're a little bit fearful of asking. Because it might be an awkward situation, or it might be I don't know what else it would be, but you go above and beyond.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And do you know what? Something's coming to mind, and I don't know if you'll be able to share this on the podcast because this is like quite out there. But in one of the yoga teacher trainings that I was doing, it was a 300-hour yoga teacher training, and one of our teachers was telling us about his experience doing a Vipassana retreat, which is a silent retreat. You can't talk. I don't think you can even make eye contact with other people there. You can only listen to lecturers and reflect. And I think they have like an hour a day where they'll have a lecture, someone talking to them to help them journal or process their thoughts or whatever. But there was a part of him describing this Vipassana that he'd done, and I can't remember how long it's for. It's usually quite an extended amount of time, like it can be a couple of months or longer. And he said they have to practice the art of abstinence whilst they're there as well. And I just had it in my mind. I was thinking, okay, but you're in a room on your own. Like, what if you just didn't abide by that? Would it change your experience? Like, I was just so curious. I wanted to know if he'd been fully abstinent or whether he'd had a wank, basically. So I just asked him, and I just felt no embarrassment. I just asked him outright. I was like, did you get the urge, or did you find that easy, or what was your experience like then? Did that change? Because it's all to do with energy, right? They're not supposed to expel their energy. They're supposed to like nurture and keep their energy in and whatever. But so many people in that class turned around to me and they were like they just could not believe that I had asked that question. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just wondering. I just want to know everything. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the thing. I've always been so curious to know everything. And my mum was very open, a bit too open actually sometimes looking back. So it probably comes from her being really open that I just ask all the questions. Maybe
Are
sometimes it's too
you the
much.
youngest? Are you the
Yeah,
youngest child?
I'm the youngest.
I
Can you
knew it.
tell?
I knew it. I knew. That's why you can just ask whatever you want.
Yeah, that's why.
It is why.
Yeah, that's so funny, isn't it? It's interesting.
No. Well, I really wanted to bring it up because sometimes people spend so much money, especially like with mentorship, and they never raise their hand, they never ask the question. And that could be for, a couple of reasons why. So maybe just, kind of reminding them that, why are you holding back? Why are you asking the questions? And sometimes though, right, some people are just not approachable, and that plays a huge role as to why people don't ask for help. So do you have any advice for them?
That's really interesting because I don't actually think of myself as someone who is good at asking for help when I need it. I'm good at asking the questions when I want to know the stuff. And actually, when I was younger, I think I was a bit too out there for a lot of people. I was a bit too blasé and loud. And the older that I get, I am. And actually, the more yoga training I've done, the more I do reflect and see the importance of quiet time as well. And it's strange because I'm like 50-50 introvert and extrovert, right? So I love spending time with people, and especially when I'm in my summer, in my cycle, I'm happy being all chatty and connecting with people. And then the rest of the time, I really recharge my batteries by being alone and being more introverted. But the advice is hard. If you want to ask questions, if you're in a mentorship, I would always just say, don't be embarrassed. There's, like you said, Jill, there's no wrong questions. And the chances are if you're thinking it, someone else is going to be thinking it too. But in all honesty, when it comes to asking for help, that is something I am still working on as well, because I find that in the times, I mean, motherhood is coming to mind, right? Because motherhood is a challenge. It's a blessing, but it's a challenge as well. And I actually have relatively little help because I don't have my mum around and my husband's parents live in Scotland. So actually, at the times when I'm struggling and I need help with that, I'm still not good at asking for help. I kind of go in on myself and think I can solve it on my own, or I'll sulk a bit, or so I don't really have advice for that one, but I know it's something that I want to work on myself as well. It's so hard, isn't it, asking for help when it comes to personal things. Do you guys have any advice for it? Are you good at asking for help?
Well, it's easy to just say, just do it. But when you're feeling intimidated for whatever reason, it's hard to just do it.
I was going to say, I'm the person who, when I see something that I can't do, it's usually a block. Like something happened that gave me that block. And there's usually a story that you attach to that makes it your truth. And so for me, I know that growing up, the reason I was very quiet was because I was always told not to. Well, my parents didn't speak English. They still don't really speak English. So I was kind of like that translator between my parents and other adults. So it was easier for my parents to tell me to be quiet, like don't ask questions. But growing up, that's kind of like the challenge that I took upon myself. Like, no, I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to figure this out. So I think there's a story that we all have as to why we won't do something. So when you kind of explore that and then you detach the story from it, I think that's when you probably will have that feedback to overcome that.
Yeah. I think we all probably have a bit of that in our childhood as well, don't we? There was a saying that I heard once when it went something along the lines of, frequently we see people having children and encouraging them when they're young and they're learning to walk, and you're like, great, well done, you're doing so well. And then they hit this point where they start school usually and enter the school system, and then we tell them to sit down and shut up and do as you're told and be quiet. And something, it's like we're stripping away their individualism, isn't it?
Well,
like,
when you ask questions as a kid and the adults have had enough of you because you're in that why phase, like, but why? But why? What do adults say?
Yeah.
Because I said so. Because I said so. So then you kind of stop asking questions.
Yeah, that's true. I think I went the other way, and then I would hear, stop showing off. My mum would say all the time, stop showing off. Very long.
But maybe, right, you kind of subconsciously maybe think that you're like, oh, maybe I won't ask questions because then I'm coming off as a show off, and maybe you don't realize that subconsciously you think that, which is horrible.
Isn't it? Sorry,
Yeah, like 9 times out of 10, any
So-
trauma or block is related to like when you were a kid. For
sure.
sure.
Definitely.
Kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. That's what I always heard.
I know, I hate that one. It's so bad, isn't
I
it?
know.
Think about it.
It
It's
is.
horrible.
But I would never say that to my son. I would never. But I only have one kid. So I think it was because they had like 17 kids back in the day, and then it went down to like 10 kids, and then it was like 5, and now we get like 1 or 2, and so we can tolerate that. We can tolerate them now.
I don't know if you notice any difference as well, but I think this is particularly prevalent for women and girls because, I mean, I'm actually thrilled now that I'm a parent of a girl and a boy because I want to do my best. It's my intention to raise them the same and, you know, raise Cora knowing that she can be a strong, independent woman and she can do anything she wants, but also raise Jax to know that he can be nurturing and emotional and, do you know what I mean? Like those traits that you usually label because I think, particularly for women and girls, we would hear be quiet and sit down and, you should be seen and not heard. And this is a storyline that has actually played out a lot in my life because when I considered doing things at school, subjects like business, for some reason, I always had it in my mind that was a male thing to do. And it was the men in my life, like my granddad, that I would see making the money or being the ones with that are capable of having a business. And I had this kind of block that I never thought a woman was able to have a business, which is ridiculous to say that out loud, isn't it? It's so bonkers. And now I've done like a full 180 where I just really want to make sure my daughter knows that's ridiculous. Like you can do anything you put your mind to. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. But I've definitely had a lot of that growing up.
That's the imbalance. Like, you know, we hear a lot about like the toxic masculinity, but that's like what you explain is the toxic femininity, where they expect women to just, you know, stay at home, take care of the children, and clean, cook. That's pretty toxic. You know, like there's just no balance between that masculine and feminine energy, which I think we forget. We have both of it. You know, both of that, and we need to kind of like reestablish that.
Yeah, in everyone has both masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
So interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Huge imbalance, but I blame society for that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's
sure.
not our fault. It's literally the society that we grow up in.
Yeah. But I think if people
We
kind
should
of
never take blame for anything.
No, just blame society.
That's what we. Just blame something else for everything.
Yeah.
It's never us. Ruth, I want to know about your 6-figure business. You birthed a baby. And since we've known you, Mel and I say this, we're like, Ruth was pregnant for like a year and a half. Like, since we've known you, you've been pregnant. That baby was never coming out.
It felt like it, didn't it?
Were you pregnant before you started the business adventure, or did they start at the same time, or which one came first?
I had just started the business, and then I think it was 2 months into it, I found out I was pregnant. And it's crazy, actually, because the start of 2023, so January 2023, I had just signed up to do a master's degree in psychology because Callum and I were really burnt out. We were, you know, just staying afloat, but we had no funds to do anything extra or plan for the future or, you know, have a savings account for our kids. And it was just this kind of daily stress and worry for me. And so I knew I wanted to make a change. And in my mind, I went down that rabbit hole of thinking, right, well, I've always been fascinated by psychology. You know, I wouldn't mind exploring that more, furthering my education, getting a higher paid job. Long story short, I started this master's degree and it was just too much. Like, it was too much work. It was stressing me out in the first few weeks. I was doing it alongside 2 other part-time jobs with a toddler at home. I was just like, this is madness. And then it was like a light bulb moment. It went off. I was thinking, all I'm going to come out of this at the end of is with another piece of paper and debt and no guarantee of an actual higher paying job. So I quit that and went through the whole, emotions of feeling guilty about quitting, being like, oh, I'm a failure and all the rest of it. And then it was soon after that this opportunity came along, and I saw, just a regular woman online making thousands from home. And at first I thought it was too good to be true. I had just lost one of my other part-time jobs at the same time as well. So I was like, I was in that situation where I was like trying to trust the universe, knowing that it was throwing me this opportunity at the right time. So the more I kept coming back to it, the more I kept thinking, this is happening for a reason. And it was sparking my curiosity, and I was hooked. And it was along the same time, actually, as well, that although I was considering doing the master's degree, I think deep down I knew that I wanted another child. And had I have continued with the master's degree, that would have been another 3 or 4 years where we would have essentially put our family life on hold and had a bigger age gap between our kids. And it was just all meant to be, because I started this business and then 2 months in, I found out I was pregnant. And the thoughts did go through my mind where I was like, fuck, am I going to be able to do this all at the same time? Like, I was scared about the morning sickness that I knew would be coming. And I was thinking, how am I going to show up every day online? Feeling like, absolute crap. And, that did all happen. But I just
you did it
up. I just did it. Yeah. And it was all meant to be. Like, yeah, it's mad.
You just kept getting bigger and bigger. You were still showing up with your belly, and I was like, it was awesome.
I put up a picture of me on my stories the other day, actually, of before I'd had kids, and somebody messaged me being like, oh my God, I've just realised I've never known you not pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, and then from talking to you before, you had been doing something with social media, but for someone else. Was that one of the 2 jobs that you had?
Yeah, so before lockdown, before COVID hit, I had been doing yoga teacher training, so I was teaching yoga. And then I met a friend through, during one of the yoga teacher trainings that was also, she had her own yoga business essentially, and she's a fitness and yoga influencer. And I became friends with her, and then basically started working for her as her social media manager for her business page and her PA. And I was delighted to get this job, let me tell you, because I had been kind of exploring the online space. I had an Instagram account. It was just a personal account. I used to share my yoga journey on there. It was kind of something to hold me accountable. And at the same time, I was like tiptoeing into the online world where I was like noticing people were making money, and I was thinking, how are they doing that? So when I got this job with her, I was just like a sponge. Like, I just wanted to soak up everything I could. And I was honestly learning as I go. I had no previous experience. I just taught myself everything, like video editing or creating graphics in Canva or whatever it was that I was doing. I was just teaching myself as I was going. So I was grateful for the opportunity, and at that time it was the highest paying job I'd ever had. Actually, she was paying me around £2,000 per month, but bearing in mind that was 24/6, like 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like it was full on.
Yeah.
And the kind of, as time went on, I was starting to realize just how much money she was making online just by doing like brand collaborations or posting on her Instagram. And obviously she did have her own business where she was selling products as well. So it was essentially, sales and affiliate marketing partnerships that she was doing. And my mind was just blown. I was like, this is huge. Like, I need to have my piece of this pie. But that being said, I didn't want to be an influencer. Like, I kind of saw the pressure that put on her, probably mentally more than anything, having to share every single part of your life. And, like life has up and downs, doesn't it? When the times happen where you're having challenges and you're an influencer, people might not knock it as a job, but they still have to show up. They still have to have their energy and be lively. And So yeah, it was amazing. That's how I came across it. But I was just kind of like wanting to explore it further, get my little piece of the pie, but not necessarily do influencing. And so
Yeah.
I continued down this road, ended up not working for her a little while later after she'd made some changes with her team. So then I got another social media job with a health and wellness company. And I was just doing that part time and teaching yoga because obviously Cora was very young at home. And that was honestly terribly paid. Like it was really, really bad. I just don't think a lot of businesses have a budget to pay someone in digital marketing, and yet they still want you to do a stellar job, which I was doing. So, yeah, that was when I lost that job and came across this opportunity. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in and do digital marketing now, but for myself. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I lost that job, looking back.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things that could have happened to me, losing that job, because that allowed me to walk into this opportunity. And then literally just 5 months later, I'd made my first 6 figures online, which I never thought would be possible for me. It's just wild.
That is wild. So I'm curious, you had developed the strategies and the methods used to help grow her page, or she was teaching you them. And then when you joined the mentorship that we all met in, how different were they? Did you look at stuff going, man, I could have done that and it would have helped her a lot more? Or did you know tricks that you're like, well, I'm learning this from here and this is really great, but I know a better way? Either of those kind of things?
Yeah, I think I had a lot of wishing I knew what I know now then, because I definitely could have done a better job, because I honestly was just teaching myself as I go. There was a few little things that were helpful knowing, particularly on Instagram. Like, I think just one of my pet peeves is when people don't realize to line up their reel or their photo or video on their main feed so it all looks higgledy-piggledy, especially if there's text, right? So I just knew like little things like that I was already using, but it wasn't any big strategy, any of the money-making strategy.
So here in the bigger room, we talk about like the different pillars in life, and you talk about how you were a yoga instructor, right? And how you were going to study psychology for your master's. So those are two big things that I feel like they go together, because with yoga especially, right, we talk about the different chakras in the body. Do you feel that has played a role with you becoming an entrepreneur? Because I find a lot of people are so disconnected from different pillars in their life that when they focus on that one pillar of wealth or finances, they like their health has probably declined or their relationships are in the decline. So I personally believe that everything, right, all these pillars in life have to be in the uptrend for you to get to be your highest self. So did that play a role in who you are today?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually really grateful that I found them this way round, because had I not, I think I would probably be one of those people that you're saying, that let their health slip because they're just focused on their work or making money, or, you're quite sedentary when you're at your desk. But it was a really interesting journey as well, because it's one thing teaching yoga, but when you're exploring the business of yoga, and everything is social media now, so most teachers also advertise their classes or their services online. There was this huge disconnect between yoga teaching us, because for me yoga isn't like, it's hard to explain if you're not into yoga, right? Because I think it's really misconstrued about what we think yoga is. Some people might just think it's stretching or standing on your mat and doing yoga poses. But for me, yoga is a way of living, right? There would be no point in me doing a yoga practice, doing the postures, and then going to the shop down the road and being really rude to the cashier at the checkout that serves me. Like, that is my yoga in real life. If I'm kind to the person at the checkout, they might be having a bad day. Can I be kind to them? That is yoga as well. So for me, like, I was in deep, this whole yoga as a way of life, But then when I was exploring the business of yoga, there was this huge disconnect between somehow me, myself, and the yoga community thinking it's wrong to want a lot of money or to see the value in earning a lot of money or exploring the ways that we can turn yoga teaching or fitness instructor or whatever it is into a profitable business model. And that was something I had always struggled with. So although I'm grateful that I came at it in that sense, I felt like I worked on all those other pillars, improving my relationships with other people and myself, improving my happiness, trying to heal my grief, which is really what I came into yoga teaching for. But then there was just this one thing that was still a constant for me. And it's so contradictory, isn't it? Because a lot of people start a yoga practice to lessen the stress in their life and improve their health. But one thing that was still constant that I was noticing was that I still had this constant stress about money and about our finances. So I was like, how can I be doing all these other things right and not want to heal and work on this one thing that's still giving me stress every single day, which is money and finances? So it just felt like the natural progression for me to want to work on that as part of my yoga journey, even because that is like now putting everything together. And it's funny, isn't it? I was thinking about actually since the last time we spoke, because there's so many phrases that we hear about money. I think, Mel, you said growing up, your family would believe as if like money is the root of all evil. And another one that we hear a lot is money can't buy you happiness. And I feel like this is such a phrase that we say, you only say it when you're broke, right? As an excuse.
Yes.
And what about the fact that we don't hear people saying, if you have everything else, if you have happiness, if you have love, if you have a family you're proud of, you have kids, whatever, but you don't have money, you're still not going to be happy because you're going to be stressed every day, and that will take its toll on your mental and physical health. So not enough people say the reverse of that phrase, like you can have it all, but if you still don't have money, you're definitely not going to be happy. Like it's not as catchy, but you get what I mean. Like we hear people saying money's happy.
I think it's a poor man's. I think it's a poor man's mindset to say that. And I remember when I was about 19 years old, and I was talking to this lady who did have money, and she said, I think I was talking about some, like a fight that my parents had or whatever, and it was, of course, about money. And she's like, people say that money can't buy happiness, but I will tell you, if we didn't have money, I would definitely be fighting with my husband a lot over just stupid stuff. And she said, so I can't believe that statement is true at all. And I'm like, thank you. And that's somebody who had money saying that. It was so
refreshing
relieving to hear that. Yeah.
And probably the majority of relationships break down through arguments about money, or like that will be something every single listener out there will be able to relate to, hearing either their parents or in their own relationship arguing about money. So the fact that we don't talk about it more is so bonkers. Like it's just silly when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it triggers everybody.
It triggers everyone.
They get mad. It starts fights.
Yeah.
It goes back to when you right, maybe in your circle. I know I am not close to a lot of people that I was a year ago, because you become a different person, and all you want to do is mastermind. Like literally when you hang out with friends, like when I talk to Joe, it's always masterminding. That's kind of the evolution of relationships, because you have this belief and desire to get more out of life because you can. You know you're worthy of it. And these people have that block of, or sometimes for a lot of people, it's like, oh, that's too much money, that I just can't handle it. Like, that's way too much money. Like, I'd settle for just this. So the moment you put it out into the universe, like, oh, I'd settle for an extra, $100, $200 a month. Like, that's the limiting belief you have. That is all you're going to get. And so when people, and again, it just comes down to like, is it selfish of you, right? If you feel it's selfish to want more out of life, meaning if like your dreams aren't crazy, like, to the point where people are laughing at you, like you're not daring to dream big enough. Yes. We're not gonna die. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say we're gonna freaking die. Like, just do it. I don't know how else to say it.
I heard something recently in one of the books or podcasts, and it was if you are not a different person, like every 6 months, like something has changed in you at least every 6 months, then you are not doing anything to grow and to become, better in life but yeah, it was like every 6 months there's going to be a whole new version of you. If the three of us look at the progression from December to right now, I mean, how I think about just like the first interview Mel and I did, the first interview in that first call that we were on, it was with Brandy, and then we've had other calls to redo them, and how it changed over those quick, like 2 months time, because so many things had happened for sure for Mel and I in growth and the stuff that we are trying to learn and develop and come up with and all the changes that were taking place. And it was like we were a totally different person each time. And it's really crazy to look at that short time period that all that stuff could happen and the changes that could happen
and
with each other.
I also want to highlight that from like a biological standpoint, like you literally are a different person because all the cells that you have right now, like they recycle and you have new ones. So literally, if you inventory so like literally like the food you put into your body, the books that you're like the people that you're listening to, all of that, you are literally a new person. So I think people get caught up on like, in 30 days you can do this, or, and they get caught up on like the fast, but it's a journey. And I know it sounds a little morbid when I say it, but like people are like, YOLO, you only live once. No, you die every day. So what do you have to do now to get to, the experience? Actually, you don't get the experiences come to you as long as you believe that that's what you attract. I don't know. It fires me up to try to help people that way.
Yeah, I really relate to that way of thinking as well, because, it comes back to that thing of we all have storylines again, doesn't it? Because if you're not realizing that I mean, in a way, like this is what yoga teaches as well. Like every time you'll step on your back to do a sun salutation, it's a new day, it's a new you. You're coming at it with who you are now in the moment, rather than that moment's gone. We're not that person anymore. We're who we are now. And actually, if we don't live like that, if we're hanging on to the old stories of, oh, I can't earn enough money because of X, Y, Z, or I can't change my job because of what my parents think, or X, Y, Z. Do you know what I mean? We have all these layered storylines. We're such multifaceted people. And, none of us are perfect. I'm not even saying that I have it all figured out. I for sure fucking don't. I'm still figuring it out as I go along. All at work in progress.
We all are.
Yeah. And actually, my goal isn't to be perfect. I recognize that it's never going to happen, but the pursuit of bettering yourself every day and being like 1% better every day is where it's life changing, isn't it? And I've heard the same thing before, that every 7 years, every single cell in your body is changed and renewed. Yeah. So I always think about this. If someone from my past that hasn't spoken to me for longer than 7 years tries to message me, or especially if it's like some hate or something a bit like, twinges on like something for you.
Negative.
I'm so more able to let it go now, because I'm like, actually, you don't know me and I don't know you, because we're whole new people now. And they are usually the types of people that are living in the past and that are stuck in that cycle of the same storyline of thinking they know you, but actually they don't, because we're all forever evolving and changing.
Yep. I heard something else in another book I was listening to last night, and it was they said the second you stop learning and growing, and like people that retire and they just like, okay, well, I retired, now I don't have to do anything, that's when you actually start dying. Like you are just dying.
The
if you're
faster
not
you
moving
die
forward and trying to learn and grow, you are
dying.
dying.
That happens so much.
It's the faster people seek comfort. It doesn't matter how old you are. Like the moment you start seeking comfort, that's the day you start dying.
Yes.
You kind of like turn off the idea of life, how you just have nothing to fulfill, because it is usually fear. The number one thing, and I shared this yesterday with my community, like fear is the number one reason people don't take action. How do we wake them up, you guys?
Well, we do. I think
I know.
that is our role. We motivate, we
Yeah.
inspire, we encourage, we
Yeah.
are positive,
I know.
and I think we've done a really good job of waking people up. So we just continue to do what we do, and more people will see us and get the message.
Yeah. I came across this lady online earlier, actually, and she had a lot of viral videos, and she was just sharing really simple videos that started with the hook of what I wish I knew when I was 19, or what I wish I knew when I was 20 instead of 45. Like, she was a 45-year-old woman just sharing her life experiences. And it's something that everyone wants to listen to, because that ability to reflect on what she's learned and what she wished she knew earlier, it's like you were saying, Mel, it's masterminding, but over social
Yeah.
media. People want to listen to it because they're like, I want to learn these lessons earlier so that you can take action rather than wasting your life or being in the same position 10 years later and realizing, oh, I'm not happy in my job, or I'm not happy having this storyline that doesn't let me earn more money. And yeah, it's crazy. I think we always assume, don't we, that tomorrow is guaranteed as well. And that sounds really morbid, but tomorrow is promised to no one. So if you have a dream and you're not taking some sort of action towards it today, you will literally just keep putting it off until tomorrow and tomorrow, and then it's next year, and then it's next year, and you're just assuming the day is going to come, but it
Yeah.
won't unless you take action and make it happen.
In those, so it's like you said, morbid, and I hope it's not a morbid episode for you guys, but it reminds me of the 3M. So I had a workshop, and it covered the 3Ms, and the first one was mundane. People have a mundane life. Like, they literally have no excitement. It's just like Monday through Friday I go to work, Saturday I just binge watch TV, Sunday, whatever. Like, it's just very repetitive. The second M is you probably have a messy life. Like, everywhere you look, it's chaotic. Whether it's actually in your environment or in your mind, you have a messy life. And then the last one was, what was it? Mad. Like, you're somebody who gets mad at everything. Like, you just have madness in your life. Like, on your way to work, if somebody cuts you off, you probably hold on to that anger for the rest of the day and start cursing everybody out. So if you live your life with those 3 M's, you're never going to be extraordinary. So don't live a mundane life. Let go of the fear, take action, live an extraordinary life. Messy. Inventory your life, inventory your environment. Let go of that energy, because that's what it is. Having a messy life is having a lot of energy that you haven't let go. We covered that in our spring cleaning episode, if you guys haven't checked it out. Yeah. And then madness. Lead from a place of compassion. That person that cut you off, you don't know what they're dealing with. Lead from a place of compassion. Knock out those 3, you're on the way to living an extraordinary life.
Oh, yeah.
So,
mic drop.
Do we want to?
That was good.
Yeah.
I have one last question for Ruth.
Okay.
So with all of that being said, Ruth, what is the end goal? What does 70-year-old Ruth want out of life?
I was actually thinking about this just the other day when I was walking the dogs. I was thinking, even what does 40-year-old Ruth and what does 50-year-old Ruth want to be doing? And it's an important question to ask yourself continually, isn't it? Because the answer to this question is constantly changing. And yeah, of course, I want to be happy, but whatever makes me happy is constantly shifting, isn't it? And right now it is achieving my financial goals, having less stress, because I recognize that stress is one of the biggest causes of mental and physical illness. So whatever causes me stress, just lessening that. And I think just like some of the things we've said about remaining present and taking action towards the things that I want to do, no matter what it is, because life is only ever happening now, isn't it? So much of our brain tries to take over, thinking, oh, remember that thing that happened last week or last year, or what's going to happen in the future, or even a week from now. Like, none of that exists. We're only ever in the now, aren't we? So yeah, I just hope to still be I hope to still be living in the now when I'm 70.
Yeah.
Be healthy, happy, and wealthy.
When I talk like that, my wife calls me a Fruit Loop when I'm like, time doesn't exist. It's just now. She's like, You can't hang out alone anymore. I go on these like really deep meditations, and then it's like time doesn't exist, but it doesn't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But we have to keep reminding ourselves of that because, you know, like our brain just does its own thing, doesn't it? If you don't take control of your own thoughts in the same way we're talking about taking control of all the other areas of your life, like there's I don't know if you've ever listened to some of the music by Ram Dass, but he has this track that's called Mind Karma, and he literally says your karma is your mind. So
Yeah.
it's like that phrase, what you think you become, isn't it? Like you were saying,
Yes.
if you're going through your day thinking about what you're mad about and letting everything pile up like one thing after another, then that is the reality that you are literally creating. So if you don't start to take responsibility of the fact that you are creating your reality. And I think this was a realization that I had after my mum died as well, because for some crazy reason, like my mum was one of my biggest, she was like my biggest cheerleader, and like it was a weird balance between her being like a best friend, but she was still, you know, my mum.
Yeah.
And after she died, I just had all these realizations of storylines that I had that I didn't even know I had, where there was one storyline where I had told myself that she was always going to bail me out or help me do something I wanted to do, which is ridiculous because the only person that can do that is me. And then there was another storyline of, I think, something where I sort of held myself back. Like, you know what? It's hard to say now because obviously if she was still alive, I would have these conversations with her, but I'm not sure I would have been so confident about talking about money online if she had still been alive. But after she died, it was sort of like I had this moment where I was like, there's nothing to worry about, or there's nothing to hold myself back with, because I just had all the realizations at once. Like, life is short. No one's going to do it unless you do it for yourself. And essentially, no one's coming to save you. Even whoever is your biggest cheerleader, whether it's your mom or your dad or your sister, whatever, no one is coming to save you. You can only do something and achieve it for yourself. And I just had all those realizations at once and was like, this is it. This is my life.
That was the great awakening for Ruth. Ruth, where can people find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, ruth.theaffiliate. And I have just started my faceless marketing journey. So you can also find me at simplefaceless.method.
Awesome. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. This is how we're able to get more people into the bigger room.
Ruth, thank you so much for joining us on the Bigger Room podcast. It has been a pleasure talking with you and learning from you. And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.